Hello and welcome to The Rational Live. I'm your host, David Dole. I don't know why I'm dressed so nice today. It's been a very long and exhausting week. I am overwhelmed this week, as I think a lot of people are from all the news and everything going on. And tonight there's a debate on a Friday. Why? So I'm not sure if I'm going to cover this debate. Live. I'll cover it afterwards, I'm sure. But if I do cover it, it'll be on Twitch because I can't stream, cable news content on YouTube. So I will potentially do it on Twitch. But considering how tired I am right now at 3 p.m, I don't know. No guarantees. But before I give you the summary of today's show, of course, check out this. rationalnational.com/join. That I can't. This really bugs me that this is overlapping on top of my name key, but I can't change that right now. So you go there, go to the Patreon page. You can become a member. There's also a million ways to become a member or help support the show. You can be a YouTube member. You can send money on PayPal, send super chats, Streamlabs donation link. Everything's below the video in the description box to help me and the show. And what else? Oh, yes. I want to grow my Facebook page. Now, this is not something that I put a lot of work into, really. But it is something that is important moving forward because there is a massive audience on Facebook that largely skews a little older, and it's important to get these videos out, this information out to people that maybe generally aren't on YouTube. So facebook.com/TRN show. So it's the same handle as the Twitter handle for my show, TRN show, and you'll find it. I want to get to 10,000 followers on Facebook. I'm at 6,000 right now, so get me up on Facebook. That will help a lot. And today's show. So let me give you a little rundown here. What Mike Bloomberg said about Bernie Sanders and his ability to beat Donald Trump. Get to that in a minute. Pete Buttigieg, and actually multiple things about Buttigieg, I think, coming up. Andrew Yang appears to be winding down his campaign, what that might mean for the race. CNN, of course, we're going to go over, Iowa, how CNN treated it last night at the town hall, declaring Pete the winner, even though their own reporting was contradicting that. So I'm going to go through that. Also, Greta Thunberg throws shade at Justin Trudeau, which was great. Some highlights from Bernie Sanders at the town hall. What led to Bernie's win in Iowa. So I'm going to break down his racially diverse turnout. And also, of course, tweets of the week and polls of the week, and where Bernie sits right now before New Hampshire on, Tuesday. All right. And also, I'll take super chats throughout this. We have a new member. Hello, Truth Seeker. Welcome. So I see one super chat right now. TBF, Mayor Pete has no path to victory. He's acting as a perfect foil to Biden. This is from Jonathan Harvell. And could end up sinking them both. Maybe. It's really so. Yeah, no, I agree with you that Pete has no path to victory, but he could win New Hampshire. And if he wins New Hampshire, who the hell knows what's possible? So, Iowa has me so angry and depressed and overwhelmed. I can't wait to be done with Iowa and we all move on. And hopefully it has no real bearing on the race ultimately, but we'll have to see. Let me get a couple more super chats here before I get started. Pet May something says, Bernie has won Iowa officially. I'm so confused. So nobody's really officially won Iowa. Bernie has the popular vote, so he, definitely beat everybody else in the actual vote totals. The caucus was the results were riddled with mistakes that were not corrected once they declared that Pete won by, I think, like 1 or 2.5 state delegate equivalents. But or I think it's 1.5 state delegate equivalents. But all the errors show that actually Bernie would win in state delegates if the errors are corrected. I don't know what's going to go on with those errors if they are actually doing a recanvass and recounting everything. I'll discuss more of that when I get to the story on that. But who else? Jen Pepper says, "Good day to you." Good day to you, Jen. All right, I'll get more super chats later. Let me get started with just this fun clip, just to kind of give you an example of the entire week. This right here.
For Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders will be quite competitive there.
Yes, the audio's gone out. That's not me. That's the video.
All right, I think we may have lost Matt's audio there. Matt Visor.
So look at the moment the video the audio goes out.
For Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders will be quite competitive there.
Like, I'm sure.
All right, I think we.
I'm sure it's a coincidence, but it's just hilarious. Like, there's a guy on cable news saying Bernie has a great chance, might cut off. All right. That's just a little taste of what I of today, I guess. Let me get to the real story that I'm going to start with. All right. I'll start with this one. So Cornel West knows Pete Buttigieg. He actually knew Buttigieg's father and knew Pete when he was still in diapers. So I'm going to play this clip, but I'm also going to show you a few examples of why Pete Buttigieg can't be trusted. These are some of these examples I've gone over in past videos. I've discussed Pete Buttigieg at length before, but now that he is, or was essentially neck and neck with Sanders in Iowa, at least in terms of state delegates, not the popular vote. Bernie beat Pete in the popular vote, but state delegates, they were fairly tied. I think it's important to highlight how horrible of a candidate Pete Buttigieg is. So let me first show you this clip from Cornel West.
But no, brother Pete is like family to me. You know, his father was the great Joseph Buttigieg, who translated Antonio Gramsci. He was the dean of humanities at Notre Dame, and he was like a blood brother with me. We used to go to Italy every summer. And so I remember Pete when he was in diapers. I remember I gave him his first $5 bill right in his diaper. So I love that brother as family, you see. And so I see him, I give him a hug. I said, please give me a hug to Ann. Brother Joseph died a year ago and so forth. But I tell Pete up front, I said, now you know when it comes to the legacy of Gramsci, Brother Pete wrote his senior thesis on who? Does anybody know who he wrote it on? He wrote it on Brother Bernie as exemplar of integrity. He lived in my same room as a freshman at Harvard, Hallworthy 8. We lived in the same room, but 35 years difference, you see. So he's like family, but I'm just honest with him. I say, brother, now you know I can't support you. I love you to death. You're going to be a member of the family, but you just part of that same milquetoast neoliberal crowd I've been critical of all this time. I can't support you, brother. Not at all. You see. Now, is he better than Trump? Of course he's better than Trump. All of y'all better than, the bar is about this low.
So this is, I don't know. So many things come to me watching this clip because it, like, on one hand, it shows you Pete is fully aware of what Bernie Sanders is discussing, what he's fighting for, should be aware that that is the correct way to go. The fact that his father was a Marxist involved in movements like this, and Pete Buttigieg is just a through and through neoliberal. Like, it makes me question everything Pete ever says. How can you possibly trust this man when his positions have shifted all over the place? He lies again and again. Lies about what kind of support he has. Talked about how he had all this support from prominent black figures in South Carolina. Turns out he made that all up. I mean, you go through. There are so many issues with Pete Buttigieg that the media has not focused on that has allowed him to continue this race and been able to almost win Iowa and is now competing in New Hampshire. So it's crazy. And when it comes to his father, so I'm not an expert on Gramsci, but essentially he discussed cultural hegemony, which is the ruling class essentially using culture to keep people stuck into this capitalist worldview. And that's neoliberalism. Like that's what they do. So the fact that his father helped translate that, and how Pete Buttigieg is involved in the exact criticisms that Gramsci had, it's just, the whole thing is nuts. Now, I also want to share some other links here. Nathan J. Robinson, one of my favorite writers right now. This is an older piece, but you have to read this. Like if you haven't read this, or if you've read this, send this to friends and family. It's at currentaffairs.org. Or just look up Mayor Pete and current affairs, and you will find this article, and it dives into how much of a careerist Pete Buttigieg is and how he actually doesn't really care about people. So Nathan J. Robinson tweets out about his piece here saying, Mayor Pete is an amoral, hollow careerist who will say anything to get elected and believes in nothing except the pursuit of status and power. It is shocking to me that there can be anyone who still does not realize this. Yep. And, I mean, you look at who funds him. Warren Gunnels breaks this down here. Pete has collected more campaign cash from Wall Street than any other White House hopeful, over $3 million. Pete supported a Medicare for All single-payer system until he started raking in cash from big drug and insurance companies. Unacceptable. So this link goes into Bernie Sanders and his criticism of Pete having to do with taking that money. Also, I like to see this. Bernie Sanders going directly after Pete Buttigieg, saying this election is fundamentally about whose side you were on. Hashtag Pete's Billionaires. And you can see all these headlines here. Forbes, Buttigieg has most exclusive billionaire donors of any Democrat. The Hill, Pete Buttigieg tops billionaire donor list. Fortune, Pete Buttigieg takes lead as big business candidate in 2020 field. The Washington Post, The Finance 202, Pete Buttigieg lures even closer look from Wall Street donors following strong Iowa caucus performance. And Forbes here are the billionaires backing Pete Buttigieg's presidential campaign. So you do any research at all on this man, and you will see how empty he is. And if you don't believe me, look at this quote that he posted on Twitter. This was last night. What the hell does this mean? This doesn't mean anything. The shape of our democracy is the issue that affects every other issue. He's posting this like it's some wise quote. Oh, Pete Buttigieg. People will be quoting this for years, 100 years into the future. They'll look back and quote Pete Buttigieg saying, the shape of our democracy is the issue that affects every other issue. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. And Buttigieg appears to be taking some support from Elizabeth Warren, some support from Klobuchar, some support from Biden. So that's what's kind of helping him right now in this lead up to New Hampshire, even though he has essentially 0% support from the black community. And again, you look into his history with the black community, it's no shock as to why. So if Buttigieg gets vetted at all by the media at some point, and look, online publications have vetted him, but in terms of cable news vetting him or just at least discussing some of these issues, he will tank immediately. But they keep, putting all their hate, all their focus towards Bernie Sanders and anything that anybody else does. I mean, Joe Biden keeps lying about his civil rights record. That's never brought up on cable news. I mean, Biden tanked in Iowa without that even being discussed. Like, imagine if the media actually focused on Biden's issues, how poor he would do. And he still tanked. So just, if they even lay a finger on any of these people, they would be annihilated. On top of that, if Bernie Sanders lays a finger on any of these people, they could be annihilated. He has to do it at the debate tonight. He has to go at Pete Buttigieg. And I think he will. I mean, as I showed you, it appears he's doing it right now online. So he may bring this up on the debate stage tonight. So look for that. All right. Let me take some let me take some super chats. Do I look a little exhausted? Or a little maybe tired of this BS? It's just constant. It's constant. It's unbelievable. The amount of bull crap. I think if I say the SH word, I may get demonetized. So the amount of bull crap that is that we have to, accept again and again and again is just incredible. Okay, let me get some of these super chats here. Nick says the only positive thing here, this might make Bernie more aggressive. Yes, I hope so, and it appears that might be the case. Anthony Gonzalez says, I got info from a Bernie precinct captain about a Pete person changing vote totals. How can I pass the links? How can I pass you the links with the information? I'm not the person you should be telling. I have no power in this situation. I would, if you're on Twitter, message people that are involved in the process. The Bernie campaign, whoever. I can't do anything about it. But I'm going to go over in a minute here. I think it's my next story. Some of those problems. So just wait for that. Our Nerdy Girl says climate change is supposedly a hoax. Meanwhile, in Antarctica today, it's 65 degrees. Yes, I saw that. I think it's like 18 degrees Celsius. 18 degrees Celsius right now in Antarctica, or 65 degrees Fahrenheit. That's ridiculous. It's warmer in Antarctica right now than it is in Toronto. It's unbelievable. And all these half measures, if that, quarter measures, when it comes to climate change, not even just from the U.S., which we're really getting much of nothing except certain states like California, but like Canada, Trudeau, Australia, all dropping the ball. Yeet the Rich says support Bernie by supporting progressive media. Yes, I second that. Sin Ray says talk about how Hillary is still bashing Bernie. I'm not. I'm not. You know what's funny about that story? So that came out yesterday. She was on Ellen. Hillary was apparently bashing Bernie again. It made a couple headlines, but people stopped talking about it. I don't think I even saw CNN bring it up. Like, everybody now just kind of expects it. Like, oh, Hillary's being a whack job again. Okay. Like, it's whatever. I'm not going to give her the time of day. And if anything, it helps Bernie. Every time she attacks him, he raises in, he gets more donations. So it's all good. Karen Sheets says, please tell us all the theories of what happened. So I've already covered Iowa in like 4 different videos. I'm going to cover it again in a minute, but I'm not going to give, I don't know. I don't have any theories. I just think it's, or I should say, I don't really like to develop theories. I just see what happened, and then I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but clearly there is obviously a slant against Bernie Sanders at the very least. Andrew Dwyer says, should more progressives state their case on Fox? Sure, but who? I mean, there's only one progressive in the race, so I guess I'd like to see AOC on Fox if she's invited on there. But for the most part, we're kind of stuck with, Fox is a whole echo chamber. So, yeah, it's good to have Bernie on there when he's invited, but for the most part, I just write them off completely. Like, I don't. You can talk to the people there in person. Like, if you know family members who watch Fox all day, then engage them in person. But having one segment out of the countless hours that Fox News puts out where you have a progressive on, I don't know how much long-term effect that really has. But clearly, at least the Bernie town hall, like 6 months back, I do think was a positive thing. All right. Let me prep this next door. Okay, my Bloomberg story's next, and then I get to the other stuff. I get to the Iowa crap. Okay. So this video recently was spread on social media of Michael Bloomberg talking about Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. Now, this is a short clip, but it's worth sharing.
There was a guy, Bernie Sanders, who would have beaten Donald Trump. The polls show he would have walked away with it. But Hillary Clinton got the nomination for a variety of reasons. There was a guy.
That's 10 seconds. All Bernie Sanders has to do, if Michael Bloomberg ever becomes an issue, put that into an official Bernie Sanders ad. Just clip out, like even take out the Hillary part. Just put in the first 8 seconds.
There was a guy, Bernie Sanders, who would have beaten Donald Trump. The polls show he would have walked away with it.
Boom. Stick those 6 seconds into a Bernie ad, combine it with some other stuff. There you go. Actually, this is what you could do. You can add this clip to this. Bloomberg plagiarized parts of at least 8 of his plans. So this is a recent story in The Intercept. Let me just read a little bit here just to give you the overview. Mike Bloomberg's campaign plagiarized portions of its plans for maternal health, LGBTQ equality, the economy, tax policy, infrastructure, and mental health from research publications, media outlets, and a number of nonprofit educational and policy groups. That can go into an ad to attack Bloomberg. Again, if Bloomberg ever becomes an issue. Sometimes I think we latch on to narratives that really are never going to become anything because they have no real support. Yes, Michael Bloomberg is buying a ton of ads. Yes, he has clearly grown support in the polls because of it. But at some point, I think there's a point of diminishing returns when it comes to how much support a billionaire can actually buy. Because if you have no real connection to anybody and all you're doing is buying airtime and getting your name out there, name recognition is only going to take you so far. So the moment you start attacking someone like that, you can take them down pretty easily because already the image that people have in their head is very fresh of who this person is, that all you got to do is show them another side and then quickly it changes their opinion on who that person is. But they can also discuss this in an ad potentially. Mike Bloomberg is paying influencers to make him seem cool. So this is, I read this story. It's the kind of thing that, companies do to try and spread their product out there. They pay influencers to talk about the product. Michael Bloomberg is doing that with his campaign because he has no real support. Especially no support from young people. So he has to fake it by trying to pay influencers to talk about how awesome Mike Bloomberg is. It's, again, any of these things, like this is all, he's a paper tiger. You can attack him and this stuff would just completely, he would just collapse. There's also this. 2 members of DNC Rules Committee are simultaneously working on Bloomberg's presidential campaign. One was just nominated by DNC Chair Tom Perez to be a vice chair of the Convention Rules Committee. So this is another way in how the DNC is trying to rig the process against Bernie Sanders if Bernie doesn't hit above 50% of the delegates by the convention. So this is the kind of crap we're up against. And let's just be completely honest. If Bernie wins the most delegates, even if it's not half, but if he wins the most delegates, if he comes out of this primary with the most delegates and they screw him, I'm not going to tell you to vote for Bernie Sanders. I'm not going to tell you to vote for the Democratic nominee. Because how could I tell you that after the candidate was just completely screwed by the party? So, look, I don't want to think ahead to that because right now the fight's in front of us. And it does look like Bernie can absolutely win the most delegates and become the nominee. But if the party screws him, I'm not going to be the one to tell you to, bow your head and vote Democrat because it just wouldn't. How could I? It would be a completely rigged process. So just a little taste of who Michael Bloomberg is and why, if he ever becomes an issue, why any small attack on him, focusing on any one of these things. I mean, I didn't even discuss stop and frisk and his whole history as New York's mayor. There is so much to go into when it comes to Michael Bloomberg. So if they launch any attack on him at all, if he becomes an issue, I don't think his support will hold up for very long. All right. Let me take some more super chats before I, excuse me, go to the next story. I burp way too much. It's just, it's a problem. It's what happens when this live stream is like just after I eat lunch. All right. Let me see what the people are talking about. Justin Anderson says, will our Revolution PAC be brought up tonight? Will our Revolution PAC be brought up tonight? In relation to what? Is there a story about this? I don't know. Brandon J says, honestly, just curious, do you ever remember the people that send you super chats and stuff? Do I remember them? I remember the names. I think I've seen your name before. That said, I am bad with names. So if I do recognize your name, count yourself lucky, because I don't. The thing with me, I can meet somebody face to face, shake their hand, and then honestly forget their name 2 seconds later. And it's not because, you know, I'm a rude person, but it's because I'm so focused on the social interaction and just being like, oh, hey, nice to meet you, that I'm not actually like registering anything in that interaction. But also, I'm just bad with names in general. So I don't know what to say about that. But all right. Next story. This is not really a story. I was almost going to lead with this clip, but I found the Cornel West stuff better to start with. But I do want to share this. So recently on social media, Pete Buttigieg, his campaign, posted a video of him from the CNN town hall, and something is different about it than the original video. So watch this, and I'll discuss it.
And statistically, we run the risk of being the first generation in American history to actually be worse off economically than our parents if nothing is done to change the trajectory of this economy. To me, that is not just a concern for our generation. It's a concern that calls on us to build an alliance among generations to try to make sure that the future really is better than the past. And you don't get that by promising to turn back the clock. You get that by finding ways to make change work for us before we're all disrupted out of a good livelihood by it.
Let me introduce you to Tyler Lentz, who recently graduated from business school.
They added applause in that clip. There is no reason to need to do that. Watch again. Watch the one on the right.
Not just a concern for our generation. It's a concern that calls on us to build an alliance among generations to try to make sure that the future really is better than the past. And you don't get that by promising.
There's no applause there. They put that in. If Donald Trump did this, there would be, MSNBC segments about it. Morning Joe would be laughing about it. We'd all be laughing about it because it would be ridiculous. Pete does it. No one's going to cover this. No one's going to talk about this. But if Trump did it, well, can't believe how Trump is so self-absorbed he had to add applause into the clip of him where there was no applause. But this is what you get with phony Pete. This is what happens. Okay, now let me get to the real story. Just a little prep. All right. So Bernie Sanders won the Iowa caucus. He had the most votes easily, and he when it comes to the state delegate equivalents, he is down by 1.5, yet the results are littered with errors. And there's actually going to be a recanvass, which we hope will fix some of those errors, though at this point it's kind of hard to trust the DNC and what they're doing here. But even though, so I'm going to show you how CNN reacted to Pete not winning the Iowa caucus, and then I'm going to show you how they contradicted themselves with their own reporting. So here first is Pete Buttigieg at the town hall last night.
100% of precincts reporting. You are holding a narrow lead of 1/10 of a percentage point over Senator Sanders on the state delegate equivalence, which is the metric that we use to determine a winner. What is your reaction?
Well, it's fantastic news to hear that we won.
That is so dishonest. That is so dishonest. And the least they could have done here, the least Chris Cuomo could have done. And look, this is actually not Pete Buttigieg's fault. This is Chris Cuomo. Obviously, if the host tells you won, you're not going to say you didn't. But Chris Cuomo here, he could have at least added Bernie Sanders beat you in the popular vote. But our reporting shows you won by 1 point or whatever, how many, like a tenth of a percentage when it comes to state delegates. But he also didn't, because the information they're basing this off of is not real. It's not final. So an hour later, CNN's own Jake Tapper tweeted this out, saying a CNN analysis shows errors in the count reported by the Iowa Democratic Party. Multiple counties have reported a different number of state delegate equivalents than they were supposed to have, even though all precincts in the county have been tallied. CNN's own reporting contradicts what Chris Cuomo said on CNN an hour earlier. Now, the reason why this is an issue is because many people will have watched that CNN town hall and think, wow, Pete Buttigieg won the Iowa caucus. Well, maybe I can get behind him. Sounds like he's doing pretty well. And he can bring over, Biden supporters, some Warren supporters, some Klobuchar supporters, and potentially win New Hampshire based on a lie. Also, there is more to this. So, I mean, I'm not going to go over all these errors because I would be here all day. But look up, there is a ton of mistakes here. This is Taniel, Iowa update. With 100% of precincts according to the Iowa Democratic Party, Buttigieg is ahead of Sanders by 1.51 state delegate equivalents, less than 0.1%. Note, IDP did not change its allocation of satellites SDEs. But goes on, caution, some glaring mistakes that have been widely reported for more than 24 hours were not fixed. So, again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but Des Moines here, apparently it's still glaringly incorrect. Sanders should be netting, I guess, more delegates there. He goes on and on, all these different precincts having all these issues where the reported numbers don't add up with what the Iowa Democratic Party reported. And then gives an update. This is an update that Taniel gave today. Please read thread. I was very measured in what I said about Iowa through Thursday evening. The IDP has made things worse since. It's now pushing out info it knows to be false, despite how it's already been reported. In fact, encouraging it by insisting 100% and deflecting ownership. So they're continuing to do this today, continuing to act like these are the results when all of these issues have been pointed out over the past 2 days. And on top of that, the Bernie Sanders campaign released many of those issues that they found themselves. So Adam Kelsey, who is from ABC, tweets out, despite Pete Buttigieg claiming victory in the Iowa state delegate equivalent count, the Sanders campaign is out with a list of discrepancies they say they found in the count, which add up to 2.5 state delegate equivalents for the senator. Buttigieg is officially up 1.5. So if these mistakes are corrected, then Sanders would be the winner in state delegate equivalents. But none of this has been fixed. As far as, while I'm recording this right now, and last I checked, none of this is fixed. And whatever link that was is down. Nate Cohn tweets out here, with 100% counted, it's Buttigieg by a mere 1.5 state delegate equivalents, according to the IDP. It includes a satellite rule in favor of Sanders worth less than 3 delegates, but also dozens of irregular, inconsistent, or impossible precincts in need of verification before a projection we might never get. So this is the New York Times, I believe. Yes, this is the New York Times election reporter saying that there are issues with the results. So the New York Times is reporting this, CNN is reporting this, Bernie Sanders is reporting this. And he adds here, as an aside, we've been given them a full list of the precincts involved here, and they're still putting it out. So the New York Times was telling the Iowa Democratic Party that, no, these results are incorrect, telling them before they released them. And they still put them out as official data. I mean, if you don't think this process is rigged, at least the Iowa caucus, you're crazy. Clearly, something went on here. And if you combine this with my other reporting on how the app functioned and how Buttigieg was connected to the app and how his campaign had given the company, I think it was like $42,000 a few months ago for something. I mean, the whole process in Iowa is completely insane to me as somebody who lives in a country that is not America. I live in Canada. And we have Elections Canada, an independent, nonpartisan group that responds to Parliament. And the idea of money exchanging between the app company or the people collecting the votes, that there is money exchange there between them and a campaign is completely insane. And how that has never been brought up, even if there was no actual corruption there and it was just for business purposes, even if that's the case, the appearance of corruption is enough for it to be a huge issue. I don't know how. I didn't watch the whole town hall with Buttigieg, but I can imagine that wasn't brought up because nobody in the press has brought this up to Buttigieg since Iowa. Nobody has asked him, why did your company give this app company that was collecting the votes, that was counting the votes, why did you give them $42,000? Why? Doesn't that kind of show that could be something going on there, even if there isn't? There's obviously an appearance of corruption there. Like, how is that legal? It's insane, because if you can't trust the vote, then it's not a democracy. How can you possibly trust that you actually live in a democracy when you can't even count the damn votes properly? And if this happened in any other country, if this happened in a Latin American country, I mean, you can bet America would be invading right now. Because how could you trust the process? Unbelievable. But we're going to have to see what kind of impact this has on the race. It's already, at least in one poll, it's helped Buttigieg quite a bit. He's still behind Sanders, but it's definitely given him a boost, giving him this appearance that, oh, he won Iowa, even though he never did. And I hope that's the last time that I ever have to discuss Iowa again. But probably not. Let me, I think I heard some super chats. Hardcore FPS says you may have acid reflux. I don't. I think I've had it before, but I don't have it. Ocean says Bernie needs to imply that Pete's campaign cheated. I don't think that would actually help. Even if it's the case, just because of this world we live in, and it's just not. It's not even necessarily Pete's campaign. Like, it's the DNC that doesn't want to see Bernie win. But I don't think that would be helpful. The Backmanator says, hey, David, shout out from Winnipeg. If Bloomberg ever makes a debate stage, do you think Bernie would wipe the floor with him? P.S. Don't worry about mispronouncing my name. Most people can't. Okay. Yeah, if Bloomberg... So, Bloomberg's not going to be in this debate tonight, but potentially he can make a future debate. since they wiped out the need to show support from individual contributors. So if Bloomberg makes the debate stage, yes, Bernie should, and I think would, easily wipe the floor with him. Bloomberg has a litany of issues. I mean, I hope Bernie would come to the stage with a piece of paper on, like, you know, all the things that Bloomberg has done in his past, in addition to the fact that he is a billionaire trying to buy the election. So, but he'll, like, Bernie can't just come with that. He also should come with receipts in terms of Bloomberg's history as a mayor and just a horrible person in general. Zhang says, apparently Bernie wanted to keep caucus, but is it true? That's not a full sentence. I don't know what you're asking me. Jaguar Rose says, hi, David, sending love and support from Delaware County. Just downloaded the Burn app. Can't wait to start volunteering. We got to win this one. Hashtag still Sanders. Yes, absolutely. I'm seeing a lot of people are apparently on their way to New Hampshire to kind of help out, or on their way to Nevada or wherever. Yes, stay involved. I mean, understand, Bernie's still leading here. He got the most votes. He's still leading. He has the momentum. He raised $25 million in January. That's more money than any of the other candidates raised over the course of the third quarter. So he raised more money in 1 month than the other candidates did over 3 months. Bernie's in the lead, and he has the ability to be in this primary till the very end. So whoever comes up, whether it's Buttigieg, whether it's Bloomberg, whether Biden somehow has a resurgence, he's able to knock them all down because he has the support, he has the energy behind him to last in every single state and go to this till the very end. And he will be in this till the very end. But you have to stay engaged and vote and get people in your family out, get them educated, and, you know, door knock, phone bank, everything. Jordan Darrett says, I love Bernie, but I can't stand Bernie or bust people. They are morons who don't give a damn about the nation, just that their mascot wins. I don't agree with you at all. Seeing how the process is, how the media, how everybody with money and power, whether it's the media, whether it's the DNC, are actively working against Bernie Sanders, the process is rigged against him. It just is. So I understand the anger. I completely understand their anger. And I also, look, to be super fair, I don't think it makes sense to talk about Bernie or bust right now. Like, right now, focus on Bernie winning. See what happens. See what happens at the convention. And then we can have the discussion about what to do from there. So maybe, you know, I spoke too soon earlier. But wait and see how this all plays out before anybody jumps to conclusions about what to do. Nick says, Google tells me it's only a 99%. Matt W. says, Iowa underscores the dire need for sustained mass popular movements to force delivery of the process and the promises. Yes. Yeah. Definitely need, mass movements are essential. And it's essential even if Bernie becomes president. Like, you have to still, at that point, be engaged because nothing's getting passed without the mass movement behind him. That's how, you know, Obama dropped the ball there. He had this huge movement behind him and never used it once he became president because ultimately he was backed by large donors that picked his cabinet and his priorities. Okay, let me set up this next story. All right, this is kind of a quick story, probably, but it's something I want to mention. So 2020 candidate Andrew Yang has fired dozens of campaign staffers. Now, he's still in the race and is still going to compete in New Hampshire, but by all indications, past New Hampshire, he's likely not going to stay in this race much longer. So let me just show you the Politico story on this. Yang fires dozens of staffers after Iowa debacle. The layoffs extended throughout his organization. So I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I'll give you a little taste here. Andrew Yang's campaign fired dozens of staffers this week after an abysmal finish in the Iowa caucuses, according to 4 former staffers who were let go. Among those dismissed were the national political and policy directors of the campaign, as well as the deputy national political director, all senior-level positions. The people who were fired worked across Yang's organization, from his headquarters in New York to the now disbanded Iowa operation. So, once you start firing people that work on the national level with your campaign, senior level positions, yeah, you're not going to be in this much longer. It was a valiant effort. I think Yang brought some unique ideas to the discussion. I think UBI is something that is worth discussing, and I think we should continue to discuss it and its viability. But the campaign's coming to an end, and if you're in New Hampshire and you're a Yang supporter, I would just go to Yang's recent comments about Iowa, about what he said about Bernie Sanders in the past. Yang, it appears right now, if Yang were to back out and potentially endorse somebody, that it would be Bernie Sanders, just based on his recent actions or what he has said. So before the Iowa caucuses, Andrew Yang said that he assumes or could envision that many of his supporters would go to Bernie Sanders if he doesn't make it past the first vote. So in Iowa caucuses, there's a first vote, then a realignment. So Yang essentially saying a lot of his support could go to Bernie Sanders. I think that was a clear hint that he supports Bernie Sanders, that out of this entire field, it would be Bernie Sanders that he backs. So again, we're going to have to wait and see. But if you are a Yang supporter and you're going in New Hampshire, understand Yang has no path to victory. I mean, I would say Joe Biden at this point has barely any path to victory, or Elizabeth Warren. Like, just based on where the momentum is, where the energy is, how all the polls are moving right now, it appears it's going to be Bernie, maybe Buttigieg is going to be in this race, but even he may fall off quickly after the first states, the early states, because he hasn't put much investment into states past the early ones, and Bloomberg. So it's going to be a very weird race. But I think at this point, you have to back the candidate that you like the most out of those three. So this is the time to choose a side and really get in this fight and join us. Become a part of the Sanders movement and really push to transform the country for the better. And understand that UBI is going to have, there will be zero discussion about UBI if Pete Buttigieg is the candidate, and zero discussion about UBI if it's Bloomberg. So if you actually care about Yang's ideas and discussing UBI, Bernie Sanders is the only candidate here that will even, listen at all to these ideas. So I say now is the time to get behind Bernie Sanders and support him starting in New Hampshire. All right, let me I'll get some more super chats here. Deborah Lake, thank you for your Canadian money. Anna Bird says, wondering if citizens, specifically Democrats, can register a class action lawsuit against the DNC and the Iowa Democratic Party for failure to uphold their contractual obligations. I think it's an idea worth exploring. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. But I think there has to be a case there because it's just a complete debacle. Anthony Gonzalez says, thanks. I reached out to the campaign. I just wanted to pass you the info as well, since by all indications, these inconsistencies are widespread. Yeah, people are reporting them all over Twitter. Again, I kind of briefly touched on them in my segment, but reading out a bunch of numbers is not all that, I think, interesting in a video. It's more of the kind of thing that I think makes more sense for reporting. But it is being discussed. It is being reported on. It's just a matter of, will the Iowa Democratic Party and the DNC actually listen and do anything about it? So, jury's out on that. Henry Volt says, How about we don't get the results from the Iowa Democratic Party anymore? How about we just get the numbers straight from county supervisors like in Black Hawk County? Well, we can do that, but if the IDP is not the ones reporting it, then it doesn't really matter. It doesn't become official until the IDP and the DNC recognize it. Cody Heineman says, I live in Minnesota, and even I don't know any Klobuchar supporters, so I don't know where her polling numbers come from. That is super weird. I don't know. But Klobuchar is not going to be in this race much longer either. Like, I don't know. Like, once we get past the first 4 states, there's going to be a shakeup by that time. Like, the race as it looks right now is not going to look the same after South Carolina. So, is Biden going to be gone? Potentially. Is Klobuchar going to be gone? I think likely. Is Warren going to be gone? I think likely. So, a lot can change in a very short time when these people drop out and we see where the support moves. Creative Space sends a super chat saying, did you see coin flip for 4 delegates that were contested? Hilariously sad. Yeah, I saw that. Actually, I should have included that in my segment as well. Yeah, one of the precincts had a coin flip to figure out the result, because I guess there was a tie and there was a coin flip, and I think it was a Buttigieg-Bernie precinct, though don't quote me on that. But the coin flip was weird because I think the guy looked at the coin before he flipped it onto his hand. So at that point, you can be like, well, that's the like, yes, I want tails. No, I want heads. Like, no, that's not. If you coin flip and let it hit the ground. Like, do that. Don't grab it in your hand. And if you grab it in your hand, then and you look at it, that's where it should stay. So, but why are we coin flipping for votes? It's like, that's the real issue here. It's completely absurd. What a stupid country. I'm sorry. You live in a stupid country. That is a stupid fucking thing to do. Artificial Morphsman says, at the debate, Bernie should ask Pete, the moderates, and the media, quote, what part of 6,000 more votes do you not understand? Yes, I think that would be a nice way to put it. I won the popular vote. He should be like, we all talked about the popular vote after 2016, and I got 6,000 more votes in Iowa. Like, yeah, it's crazy. Like the same dumbass libs that were talking about how, Hillary's the real president because she won the popular vote, which, you know what, I kind of agree with. But the dumbass part of them is that they'll flip around and say, well, Pete Buttigieg, sure, he lost the popular vote, but state delegate equivalence, that's what really matters here. So just the total, just, they don't care. Like the complete hypocrisy. They just don't care, which is why you have to fight every step of the way. Always fight for what is right. Always fight for what's right. Always fight for the facts. Always fight for data. Always fight for the poor, the middle class. Fight for the people that are struggling, left behind. Fight for marginalized communities. Like, all these people are so disgusting, and they many of them, they're just like, many of the followers, it's just cult-like behavior. But the people that are leading, like the Tom Perez's of the world or the Hillary Clintons, they're the ultimate disgusting people, because they are the ones that are leading this charge against a people-powered movement. And it's gross. Zhang says, did Bernie fight to keep the caucus system? I don't know. So I don't know all the details about. My understanding is not the way that it was done. But Bernie himself didn't do any of the fighting. Like, there was I guess it was the DNC, what was it? DNC Rules Committee, or Unity Reform Commission, whatever the hell it was, where they wrote up, or they examined all the rules. I don't think they definitely didn't get everything they wanted. Actually, they got most of what they didn't want. But when it comes to the caucus system, caucuses have to go. Like, this is not democracy. This is not how you decide who wins the state. Caucuses sound great on paper. Hey, you're getting, your most excited voters out. You really have to be involved in the process. You got to be engaged. You got to be there for a while. You are involved in democracy. You're really showing your voice. But in reality, it's too much. There's too many people. You can't. You're doing head counts based on, like anybody can mess up a head count when you're counting who's on what side during this whole caucus process. The whole thing is stupid. Needs to be abolished. Move to a primary that is looked after by an independent, nonpartisan agency, not these private companies that exchange money with campaigns involved in the goddamn election. It's just so crazy to me. Let me get a lot of super chats here. Let me just get one more before I move on to the next story. Surreal Batar says, "What's up, David? Shout out from Los Angeles. Your channel is where I am getting most of my news from instead of the mainstream media. Do you think Bernie will do well in New Hampshire? Does Pete have a shot in New Hampshire?" Pete has a shot, which is why you got to be engaged. You got to vote. I don't want to make any predictions. I hope Bernie wins, obviously, but Pete has a shot because of this whole BS after Iowa. So make sure you're engaged. Make sure you lead Sanders to victory. Okay, I'll get back to those in a minute. My next story, as I am prepping here, is Greta Thunberg. Is that how you say her name? I have no idea how to say her last name properly because I'm pretty sure I've been saying it wrong for the whole time. But I'll do my best. So Greta Thunberg and Justin Trudeau. Actually, how do I start this? See, this is the part of the show you don't normally see when I'm not doing it live. Intros are the hardest part, honestly, when it comes to any of these stories, because I want to present the most important information up front without giving too much up front as I want to go through the story. But we'll just figure this out. I'll just figure it out as I go. That's what I'll do. Climate activist Greta Thunberg called out Justin Trudeau for essentially being two-faced. Now, she didn't use her own words, but she did quote a fantastic report in The Guardian by Bill McKibben, a climate activist, on just how backwards Justin Trudeau is when it comes to the issue of climate change, or I should say how dishonest he is when it comes to climate change. First, let me show you the tweet that she put out here. So you can see here, Greta tweeted out, quote, this is quoting the article from Bill McKibben, quote, "If an alcoholic assured you he was taking his condition very seriously, but also laying in a 40-year store of bourbon, you'd be entitled to doubt his sincerity," by Bill McKibben. So I got to give you a little taste of this article because it is very well written. It's a must read, and it isn't all that long. I know people sometimes, you got things to do, but it ends here. It's pretty quick. I'll give you a little bit here because this is a really great piece, and it shows you how dishonest Trudeau is when it comes to climate. So Bill McKibben says here, Americans elected Donald Trump, who insisted climate change was a hoax. So it's no surprise that since taking office, he's been all in for the fossil fuel industry. There's no sense despairing. The energy is better spent fighting to remove him from office. Canada, on the other hand, elected a government that believes the climate crisis is real and dangerous, and with good reason, since the nation's Arctic territories give it a front row seat to the fastest warming on Earth. Yet the country's leaders seem likely in the next few weeks to approve a vast new tar sands mine, which will pour carbon into the atmosphere through the 2060s. They know, yet they can't bring themselves to act on the knowledge. Now, that is cause for despair. This is a huge issue with neoliberal governments, with governments like Justin Trudeau's, where it's all, change on the outside. Oh, yes, gender neutral cabinet. Oh, yes, of course, climate change is real. Got to take it seriously. And then behind the scenes, this is what's actually going on. Let me just give you a little bit more here. The Tech mine would be the biggest tar sands mine yet, 113 square miles of petroleum mining, located just 16 miles from the border of Wood Buffalo National Park. A federal panel approved the mine despite conceding that it would likely be harmful to the environment and to the land and to the land culture of the indigenous people. These giant tar sands mines, easily visible on Google Earth, are already among the biggest scars humans have ever carved on the planet's surface. But Canadian authorities ruled that the mine was nonetheless in the public interest. And this is a reminder, as Bill McKibben points out here, of what Justin Trudeau said back in 2017, shortly after he became Prime Minister.
The resource will be developed. Our job is to ensure that this is done responsibly, safely, and sustainably.
That's the wrong clip. 1 second.
As I said on the very first trip to the oil patch back in 2012, no country would find 173 billion barrels of oil in the ground and just leave them there.
This is the climate change Prime Minister.
The resource will be developed. Our job is to ensure that this is done responsibly, safely, and sustainably.
Yes, let's sustainably take all these barrels of oil, billions of barrels of oil, out of the ground. We can sustainably do that. I'm done with these kinds of governments. I'm done with this bullshit. Which is why, if we're talking about Bernie, you know what? Let's not get there. But I'm just telling you, you can't vote for people like this anymore. You can't. It's done. It's over. The planet is dying. Or I shouldn't say the planet's dying. We are dying. Humanity will die on this planet if we continue down the path that we were on with governments like this. No more neoliberal crap. All right. That's it for that story. I'm just so... I mean, if you wanted to radicalize me, then the last 4 years of news would be how you would do it. And it's coming to a head over the past month. Like, my politics are definitely changing. 100%. All right, let me get to, not that I was ever a neoliberal, but, you know, there was a time where you could, collectively we could have impact on dipshits like that. But I'm not so sure that's the case anymore. Let me get some super chats before I go on to the next story. The Armchair Rocker sends a generous super chat. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ian McShay sends a super chat. Thank you. Patrick Zudhoff sends me a little cool emoji. It says cool. Thank you. Tony Figorski. I'm proud of myself for, I think, pronouncing that properly. I can see you're Polish. Thank you for the generous super chat. Says, love your show. One of the best around. Time to put on the yellow vest. This is outrageous. And the fact that there is no uprising is appalling. Just you wait. There will be an uprising if the shit hits the fan. Joe Biden, not real Joe Biden, sends a super chat saying, I do have a path to victory. Vote for someone else. I mean, I guess you could say, in a way, Joe Biden's campaign message did work because he went all across the country telling people to vote for somebody else, and they did. So, good job, Joe. You actually are successful, just not in getting people to vote for you. Chuck Zlatkin says, I haven't been a Dem since 2006, but I changed my registration to Democrat so I can vote in the April 28th New York primary for Bernie Sanders. Good. Good. More people do that. Everybody do that. If you haven't, again, you don't have to be a Democrat for life. Just be a Democrat for 2020 so you can vote for Bernie Sanders in the primary. Like, do that immediately. Daryl Bryce sends a super chat saying, will Warren back Bernie when she drops out? If you asked me that at the beginning of the month, I would say probably not. Now, I'm thinking maybe. But behind the scenes, they're going to have to cut a deal with her. They're going to have to, promise her a position. Maybe not VP. I would prefer someone else as VP. But that's how they'd be able to win her support. So we're going to have to wait and see. But who knows? Hardcore FPS says, can I donate to Bernie? I'm not from the UK. You're not from the UK? Or you? Can I donate to Bernie? I'm not from the UK. If you're from the US, you can donate to Bernie. But even if you're not from the UK, you could still be from another country that isn't America. But you have to be an American to donate to Bernie Sanders. Real Life Jolly says, maybe Klobuchar's boyfriends all voted her in. The ones who donate to her Senate campaign. I feel like this is a reference I don't get. Klobuchar's boyfriends all voted her in. I don't know the reference, but it made me laugh, so good job. Jaguar Rose says, my 68-year-old African-American father loves Amy Klobuchar, and he'll get in your face about it. No joke. Okay. I mean, I'm curious as to why. Like, why? I think people just like certain personalities. Like, when it comes to, like some voters, I don't want to paint older people this way, older generations, because clearly there's a lot of support for Bernie Sanders from the older gen. But by and large, when you're looking at, Generation X and boomers and older, for whatever reason, a lot of those voters are attracted to politicians' personalities, and they vote based on that. Or they vote based on, oh, I know that person. They said a nice thing once. But they don't look at, like, okay, what has the politician done? Who have they fought for? What's their platform? Like, what policies do they want to implement? Like, how is that not the focus? I don't get it. But for a lot of people, they don't care about that. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to communicate with those people because how do you get through to somebody that is just, I like Klobuchar because I don't know, she said a nice thing about me once. Like, I don't know, whatever the hell it is. I think you should support politicians based on what they've done and who they are and their platform. Brock McRae says Sanders and Yang should draw a pact to invoke each other's names throughout the debate tonight, so the moderators have to yield to them the whole time. Invoke each other's names. Oh, like, but I mean, unless they're like tag teaming the same issues, usually politicians only invoke someone else's name when they're going after them, and I don't want Sanders and Yang to attack each other. Jack Jamin says Nevada said no to the Shadow app. Yes, they did. That's correct. Nevada is not using the Shadow app, but apparently they're looking for another app. Like, is pen and paper that hard? So who knows if the new app they use will also be an issue. Adam Kern says, do you think Tulsi and Yang are going to drop out and endorse Bernie after New Hampshire or Super Tuesday? Honestly, I'll be honest with you. I almost forgot Tulsi was in this race still. Because she has not been discussed at all recently. LOL, and yes, we do live in a stupid country. Understatement. I would like Tulsi and Yang to drop out and endorse Bernie after New Hampshire. If that happens, I don't know. I think it's possible, considering where they are in the race right now. It would be nice if they did that, because at this point, they're just hurting Sanders. I mean, Tulsi and Yang are two, for the most part, very anti-establishment picks. So it makes sense that a lot of their supporters would go to Bernie Sanders, but it would help if they actually actively endorse him and fight for him. AI Cram. says, would you read the Bill of Rights for voting equality when you have time? Maybe. How about this? You read it. If you want to go read the Bill of Rights for voting equality, go do it. Rob R. says, electric voting machines make it easier to cheat. Bev Harris uncovered and explains in 2 movies, Fraction Magic and Hacking Democracy, a serious must-watch. All right. I didn't know anything about this. Yeah, also, electric voting machines, get rid of them. Like, do it on paper. I don't see what the issue is. All right. 2 more Super Chats before we move on to the next story. Noah Suber says, what are your predictions for Super Tuesday if Bernie wins New Hampshire? If Bernie wins New Hampshire, how about this? If Bernie wins New Hampshire by at least 8 points, more than 5, I would like to see him win by 10. But if he wins by 8 points, then he will sweep Super Tuesday. But if it's close, then Super Tuesday will be closer. So I don't know. But I think it's important that Bernie wins by a big number in New Hampshire to show you where the real power is. It can't be another close race. Zachary Vieira says, did you get my Facebook message about Nevada and Twitter? I don't check Facebook messages. Sorry. I only got so much time. All right. I'm going to stop there. Get to the next story. Oh, good. Some positivity coming up. So tired of all the negative crap, as I'm sure most people are. If you notice, a lot of my stories, I try to make them a little more positive because there's so much negative news, and the world is so crappy that I don't get motivated by negativity. I get motivated by positivity. So I'm going to share some of the highlights that I saw anyways from the Bernie Sanders town hall. All right. CNN held a town hall with Bernie Sanders, and I'm going to show you a few highlights here from his responses. Now, from all I've heard from people that watched the entire town hall, I didn't have the time to see the entire town hall, but from what I understand, people of New Hampshire were actually very impressed by his appearance here, and he appeared a little more personable than maybe Sanders sometimes does. So let me show you some of his responses.
Hi, hello. Thank you for being here. How do you think your Jewish heritage impacts your vision of the world and politics? And do you think it is a help or a hindrance to your role as a candidate?
It impacts me very profoundly. You know, when I try to think about how I came to the views that I hold, there are 2 major factors, I think. Although one never knows, but I think there are 2 factors. Number one, I grew up in a family, didn't have a whole lot of money, and we struggled economically, and that made me aware that there are tens of millions of people who are in that same boat. And the second one is being Jewish. And I remember as a kid looking at these big picture books of World War II, and tears would roll down my cheeks when I saw what happened to the Jewish people. 6 million people were killed by Hitler. And, I think at a very early age, even before my political thoughts were developed, I was aware of the horrible things that human beings can do to other people in the name of racism or white nationalism, or in this case, Nazism. And in the community that I lived in, there were people, you go downtown in your shop, people who had their tattoos from the concentration camps on their arm. A few years ago, my wife and I and my brother and his wife went back to the town in Poland where my father was born. And we were shown, people that were very, very nice, and we were shown an area where the Nazis had put in some 300 people and just mowed them down in a ditch. So that had how horrible people can be to other people in the names of racial superiority or etc. Certainly has been with me for my entire life. And that is why I will do everything I can to end the kind of divisiveness that Trump is fomenting in this country. We are one people, and I don't care if you're black, you're white, you're Latino, Native American, Asian American, you're gay, you're straight. That's not what it's about. What it's about is that we are human beings and we share common dreams and aspirations. So, the pain that my family, my father's family suffered in Poland is something that has impacted my life, absolutely.
So I think this is important for Bernie to discuss his Jewish heritage, because a lot of people need to feel like they connect with the candidate they support. Now, obviously, above and all, like what matters above everything else is what the person has fought for, what the candidate has fought for their entire life, the policies, the platform, who they hire, what they discuss, all that matters. But also, being able to connect with people on a personal level, I think, also matters too, because again, some people need to be able to feel that connection to show that you were actually sincere in what you were fighting for. Even though I think it's obvious, I mean, you go back, you see videos of Bernie in the 80s and 90s fighting for the exact same thing, and fighting for those issues as a leader at the time, like getting into an argument with somebody in the House over them being homophobic. This is back in the 90s. Bernie is calling somebody else out for being homophobic. I mean, this is when this is at a time when it was not acceptable to be accepting of the gay community, and Bernie Sanders back then was fighting for them. So when you see moments like that back in time, I think that shows you that he's a real human being. He actually cares. He actually cares about this fight. But also, many people haven't seen those clips, even though they should, but many people haven't seen those clips. So to be able to have moments like this on stage where you're discussing your heritage, discussing who you are, what's impacted you, I think that allows voters to connect with you on a deeper level. Let me show you this next clip here. This is about healthcare.
Hello, Senator Sanders. I'm drawn to your plan for universal health care, but I'm skeptical since I've been hearing about universal health care from every political candidate I've voted for. What makes your plan different and able to become a reality?
Thank you very much, Alicia. And you're right. You have been hearing about that. And you've been hearing about it, or Americans have been hearing about it for a lot longer than you've been alive. Teddy Roosevelt, way back when, over 100 years ago, talked about universal health care. FDR talked about it in the 30s and 40s. Truman talked about it. Johnson did something about it, talked about it. Obama talked about it. Jimmy Carter, Richard Nixon even talked about it. All right. But what has been the problem all of this time? The problem is, at the end of the day, if we want universal health care, if we want to do what every other major country on earth does, this is not a radical idea. I live in Burlington, Vermont, 50 miles away from the Canadian border. They do it. Everybody has health care. You don't take out your wallet or your credit card when you go to the doctor or the hospital. They spend 1/2 as much per capita as we spend. So, Alicia, the question is, why hasn't it happened? And the answer is, we have not had the courage as a people to take on the greed and the corruption of the healthcare industry, the insurance companies and the drug companies. Why do you think we are paying, in some cases, 10 times more for the same exact medicine sold in Canada or in Europe, 10 times more? And it has everything to do with the fact that the pharmaceutical industry, over the last several decades, has spent billions of dollars on lobbying and campaign contributions. They buy Congress. Alicia, the drug companies and the insurance companies will not buy me. I don't take their money. I don't need their money. We are going to take them on in America. We will not pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, and we will, in fact, move to a Medicare for all, single-payer system, quality, comprehensive care for all, and it will cost the average American substantially less than that family is paying today.
So that was a great response. And I actually like this question as well, because, oftentimes the question is so stupid. It's like, how can you pay for Medicare for all? When Medicare for all, every piece of information, every country shows you a single payer system would cost less than the current private system, for the obvious reason, because you take out the profit-making middleman. So the question should never be framed about how can you afford Medicare for all when it's less expensive than the current system. The question should be, we've been talking about universal health care forever. Why don't we have it yet? And why should I believe you that you'll get it done? I think that's a fair question. And Bernie has the right answer. He's not taking their money. He's the first one to completely cut them off. So he's not controlled by them. And he has a 40-year career of fighting for universal health care. So you add that together, you know that he's being sincere and he will actually fight for it. And as I've discussed a million times, as a Canadian who lives under a single-payer system, I never think about health care. If I need it, I get it. I have a health card. I walk in, they look at my health card, and then I go see my doctor. Then I walk out and leave. Like, there's no money exchange. There's no insurance. There's no calling insurance companies. Nothing's going on. I just walk into a clinic and I leave. I had surgery once. It's the same kind of deal. Ahead of time, you plan the surgery. There's maybe like one sheet of paperwork just to get, personal details. And then I go on the day I get my surgery. I walk in. They know who I am. I have my health card. Get the surgery. Wake up. Go home. That's it. Like, there's nothing else. It is simple. It is straightforward. You have complete freedom. You're no longer tied to an employer. You can start your own business. You can go back to school, and you're going to have health care because it's guaranteed to you through the single payer system. You can go to any doctor, any walk-in clinic, because there is no in-network, out-of-network. Everybody's in the same network. So it completely removes all that barrier. It's actual freedom when it comes to health care. I mean, the debate is over. It's obvious a single-payer system, a Medicare for all single-payer system is where you need to move to. It's just a matter of getting there. And to get there, you need a political leader that is rejecting all of their money, rejects them completely, and supports the people, and is supported by the people. So, and has a record of actually fighting for universal health care. And you have that in Bernie Sanders. Let's go to the last clip here. This is, I actually really enjoyed this. Again, Bernie gets a little more personal here.
What do you think the young Bernie Sanders in Brooklyn in the 1940s would say if he could see where you are now?
I think about that, Anderson, and I think about my parents. The idea, there are some people who get in politics whose families have a whole lot of money. Maybe their dads were a governor or a senator, and it becomes normal for them. That's the expectation. They say to the 8-year-old kid, someday you're going to be a governor, you're going to be a United States senator. If my parents were alive today, and they both died young, it would have been incomprehensible for them, incomprehensible. The idea that their son, coming from where we came from, to become a United States senator or a mayor of Burlington or a candidate for president of the United States, it would have been unthinkable, unthinkable.
What do you think
So I just thought that was a nice moment. It really is incredible. Like, seeing where Bernie came from, his mom dying very young when he was a kid, his father also dying young, and essentially him and his brother growing up, making it, and Bernie getting involved in, the civil rights movement early on and getting involved in politics early on. And just the way he's grown as a person, like from losing race after race after race to eventually winning, to eventually becoming, mayor of Burlington, Vermont, to then becoming a member of the House, to then becoming a senator, to then becoming someone running for president. I mean, it's an incredible journey. And the entire time, he has not compromised who he is. How many people in politics can you say that about? He has stood strong with the people the entire time. He is a fighter, and he wasn't getting the recognition for it. It's not like he was doing it for headlines. No one knew who the hell Bernie Sanders was until very late in his life. Most people didn't know who he was till he ran for president in 2016. So this shows you somebody who is just completely selfless, has always put himself on the line for other people, has always fought for humanity as a whole. He is a once-in-a-lifetime candidate. And I think it's obvious. And you have the opportunity here to actually have this man who actually cares about people as your president. Understand the moment you're in. All right. A few stories left. Let me get to super chats. Pew Pew Pandas says, here's a link to most of the facts surrounding the Iowa caucuses. It's a Google Doc with a list of coincidences. Please give it a read. All right, I'm not going to check it out now. I went over a bit of that earlier, but I want to put Iowa behind me. I've done like 4 stories on it. We all know a ton of inconsistencies in the results. There's lots of reporting on it. CNN's reported on it. New York Times has reported on it. The Bernie campaign has reported on it. So yeah, we know there's problems. Alma says, when people get an infection, the body fights it with the fever. We are the infection, and Earth has a fever and trying to get rid of us. I mean, sure, I guess you could put it that way. But yeah, in some, I could see that in some way. At the same time, not all of us, I would say, are part of the infection. There are some that are a little more of the infected than others are. Radzoza says, Mike Figueredo has a petition for Tom Perez to resign. Just Google the Humanist Report, Tom Perez petition. Let me look that up. Because I would like... People should definitely sign that. I think is this kind of old? I think I've seen this. No, I could be wrong. But yes, here it is. So yeah, just look up DNC Chairman Tom Perez must resign now, and look up Humanist Report. Maybe that helps narrow it down, and you will find it, and you can sign it. So there you go. Very cool. All right. What's next? Real Life Jolly. Let me go back here. Real Life Jolly says, sorry, David, I meant to reference that first debate where she referenced her many boyfriends who kicked her Senate campaign off with donations. Oh, okay. I don't remember that moment at all. Klobuchar doesn't stay in my head too long. Tokington says, you turned my girlfriend into a Bernie bro. Thanks. Awesome. That sounds great. Jeff Bodwin says, did you see Bloomberg wants to pay people to say nice things about him? Guardian article. I did not see that. Oh, wait, no, I did see that. You're talking about the influencers. Yeah, I shared that earlier. Social media influencers are being paid by Bloomberg to pretend he's a good candidate. J Rocks says, a lot of people are really dumb and just don't understand how politics affects all aspects of life. So good or bad, they go by personality. Yeah, I guess that is the case. But it's also, I mean, it's on, like, we can all chalk it up to people being dumb, but why are people dumb? It's because the media is dumb. It's the media's job to inform people. Now, if you're completely cut off from, no, but even like media also informs culture. So it's everything. It's the culture. It's media. So it's on, people like me, but people on television as well, to actually inform people on what is going on. And the media at large and culture at large doesn't do that. Rob Bidgood sends a super chat. Thank you. Christine Danielson says, I worked on platforms. Trudeau is lying. Well, Trudeau's definitely lying about climate, if that's what you're referring to. About his climate change positions. Okay, let me stop here. All right, let me get to the next story. All right. Which will take a little bit of prepping here. So Bernie Sanders won Iowa, but many people may not know why he was able to win Iowa. It's because of his racially diverse turnout there. So the campaign actively worked to seek out voters that traditionally have been marginalized by the Democratic Party, and that's what put Bernie Sanders over the top. So let me show you just some of the data that supports this, as well as a bit of a video from The Intercept that discussed this as well. So here you see tweet. It says non-white Iowa caucus vote percentages. Sanders 43%, Buttigieg 15%, Biden 13%, Yang 12%. And Warren's not even in the top 4. So non-white voters in Iowa clearly favored Bernie Sanders. The next piece of information here, this is from Cancel Sam. Iowa caucus demographics from the New York Times. Non-white women, 45% win for Bernie, compared to 17% for Pete, 12% for Warren, 11% for Biden. All non-white, 39% for Bernie, 17% for Biden, 12% for Pete, 11% for Warren. Women 18 to 44, 43% for Bernie, 24% for Warren, 19% for Pete, 5% for Biden, and all 18 to 24, so all young voters here, 43% for Bernie, 20% Warren, 19% Pete, 5% Biden. So it's not even like it's a little bit of a lead. It is massive. And these are the kinds of supporters that Bernie Sanders would be able to turn out in a general election that would allow him to overwhelmingly defeat Donald Trump. I mean, Bernie has the ability here to reach out to many voters who don't normally vote, have never voted ever, and didn't vote in 2016. So the Democratic voters that came out in 2016 and voted against Trump, they're going to come out regardless of the candidate. These are people that voted for Hillary Clinton. They clearly do not like Donald Trump. They're going to vote for the Democratic nominee regardless. The vast majority of them. Maybe, the 5 billionaires that host a show on MSNBC, they're not going to come out for Bernie, but everybody in the country, everybody else will. And on top of that, how do you win? So because those voters are going to come out regardless, how do you win? You win by bringing out people that did not come out in 2016. So marginalized communities, young voters, independents, working class voters that didn't come out. I mean, this is the Bernie base. Bernie taps these bases that don't normally vote. So he will get the Democratic voters, the ones that have stuck with the party regardless. And on top of that, he will bring out a whole new community of people to come out and vote Democrat against Donald Trump in 2020. Let me give you more data here. CNN entrance polls share of 17 to 29-year-old vote in Iowa. So in 2008, when Obama was running the first time, 22% of 17 to 29-year-olds came out. 2016, 18%. 2020, 24%. So Bernie's youth turnout here is topping Obama's back in 2008. Again, showing you who has the ability to reach these young voters and bring out, again, new voters into the process. Megan Day tweets here, Bernie won 80% of the delegates at the South Sudanese Center in Des Moines. 90% of the people who participated in that satellite caucus were first-time caucus goers. I do not think that the DNC should devalue their votes. So here are some of them here. Again, Bernie's ability to reach out to communities that have long been forgotten or just completely marginalized. And I'm not going to play all of this because it's a 6-minute video, but Ryan Grimm posted this. This is from The Intercept in Iowa, how Sanders won at trilingual satellite caucuses.
All right, let's go. Knock on some doors. Whoop, whoop, whoop. All right, get it. Muchas gracias por su tiempo. Y espero ver a alguien de su familia ahí.
Let me go tiny so you can see this full screen. Or let me actually get off the screen.
Claro, gracias.
Sí, no, de nada. Pero sí conoce de Bernie Sanders, ¿verdad? Sí, sabe de quién es. Okay. All right. Muchas gracias. Que tenga buen día. For the first time, we got 4 bilingual satellite caucuses throughout the state of Iowa, and they're in English and Spanish. And that had to do mainly with the push and advocacy for LULAC, which is League of United Latin American Citizens. And I mean, this is kind of bold to say, but I'm very confident that if LULAC would have not stepped up and done that, Iowa Democratic Party would have not secured those bilingual satellite caucuses. Like, that would have not been a thing. Like, we would not be spreading this information, encouraging Latinos here in the state of Iowa to come out and feel comfortable participating in this process, you know? Are you guys in a caucus?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, you got your information? All right, good. I'll show them too. So this is the flyer we made for LULAC. Because we're nonpartisan, so we're just trying to get the vote out. And then this is obviously more specific to Bernie Sanders. But the Bernie campaign knew early on about the satellite caucus, and they were on it, and they started making the flyers in Spanish. And I know this because I went to stores and I started seeing them there. So it was important. And I know a lot of people say, oh, okay, we're catering to this small group. And it's true, Latinos only make up 6% of the state. Between 2000 and 2018, the population for Latinos increased by over 135%. You know, Latinos are starting to like revitalize these communities, and people don't know that or don't think about it because you think Iowa and you don't think much besides, you know, white people, you know, because it is very white here. But again, someone is working that economic backbone, right? I'm getting an energy high. I feel really good. There was a whole bus that pulled up that dropped off at the Sudanese community, and that was really cool to see. Muchas gracias por venir. Muchas gracias. No sé, yo sé que está muy ocupado. We are expecting a Latino turnout, but also the Sudanese community to turn out because there have been explicit efforts on behalf of the community and the Bernie Sanders campaign to talk to them.
I have debt about $30,000 because I finished from my master's degree and I came from Sudan. So I got this opportunity and I'm here.
When we go and ask in person for people to come out and show out, it means a lot to them because hardly any of these candidates go and talk to them or knock on their doors. And so each one of them are here, they're walking in with smiles, super excited. So I'm very excited for that. Do you want a Bernie sticker? Yes, that's what yes, right there.
All right, I'm not going to play the whole thing because I don't want to, take their content here. But The Intercept, if you go to theintercept.com, they'll have the whole video. And it shows you what's not being reported by the mainstream press. Have you seen CNN talk about this at all? Or MSNBC talk about this? I mean, this is not being talked about in cable news. And really, it's not even being all that discussed in online publications either, like the Washington Post or the New York Times. Like this has been really only thoroughly reported by The Intercept and other reporters, other independent reporters on the ground. So this is what's being missed throughout this entire Iowa caucus process, that these are the voices that often are the ones that are marginalized, that a Bernie Sanders candidacy can bring into the Democratic Party and take the party and Bernie Sanders above and beyond going into the fall against Donald Trump. All right. All right. Winding down. 2 of my weekly segments now, tweets of the week and polls of the week. So first, I'm going to prep the tweets of the week. Actually, first, I'll take some super chats since I saw there were many I haven't gotten to yet. It's me, John B. says, driving through Palm Springs for work, listening to your show. You rock. Awesome. What's up, John? Thank you. Real Life Jolly. Did I say this already? No. I think Real Life Jolly sent one earlier. Yes. Real Life Jolly says, also, if you are French Canadian, my name is French. Oh, Jolie. Sorry. My apologies. Real Life Jolie says, ever read Les Miserables? No, I have not. But very cool. Cool to have some French Canadian viewers. AIC Ram or ACRAM, I think I say your name differently every single time. Says, I wrote the Bill of Rights for voting equality. Very short, can't send link. Google, please talk about another time. All right. Christopher Idarola says, David, don't get down on the election given the stakes. This was always going to be a fight. Keep the faith, man. Oh, I'm not. I'm only overwhelmed by all the news. When it comes to, I knew it was going to be a fight. At the same time, I got to say, I didn't quite see, democracy being on the line in the process. Like, when you can't count the votes properly, that's a whole other level of issues. But no, yeah, it was always going to be a fight, and my faith is kept. I'm still encouraged. Bernie's in first still. Like, I'm still engaged in the process, is what I'm trying to say. Seth O says, trust us. We know how stupid it is. Zachary Vieira says, Nevada, all the precinct captains need to tweet the results like Chris Schwartz did in Blackhawk. Otherwise, it will be a rigging repeat. Our votes in the hands of the enemy. Can we start a viral message to make this happen? I don't think that's going to work. I don't know their process, though. Like, it's possible their process is better, though. From memory, I vaguely remember, I think it was Jimmy Dore who was at the Nevada caucuses back then, and like they were doing a story on it in the caucus, and it was just insanity. Like, it was just total insanity. Actually, if you go and look up Jimmy Dore Nevada caucus, you could probably find those clips still. It was just, there was craziness going on. So we'll have to see how it works out this time. But I don't know. All caucuses need to get completely abolished. You got to get rid of caucuses. It's just a stupid process. You can't trust the votes. Matt W. says, capitalism, not neoliberalism, kills democracy. Yeah, but they both do. I mean, they work in tandem. Ryan S. says, do doctors make less under a single-payer system? That is a good question. I think it depends what you're doing. Like, if you are... I don't know, to be honest with you. Like, the doctors that make a ton of money in the U.S., from my understanding, they're the surgeons, especially if you like specialize in something specifically that other people don't. But look, the reality is we have doctors here. We have lots of doctors here. If they were that underpaid, we would have no doctors. So doctors stay in this country because they like the system. And honestly, it's also easier for them. They don't got to bargain with an insurance company or talk to an insurance company on behalf of the patient. Like, none of that goes on either. Because you're in a single payer system, you are billing the government. And there's basically a set fare or set price for different procedures and that kind of thing. So there's never that like behind the scenes negotiation going on. So it frees up the doctor's time. They get to focus on the patients more. They get to focus on their work. So there are benefits as opposed to, just looking at pay. There are other benefits as well. But I don't know a direct answer to your question. I'd have to look it up, and it may take some research. So I'm not positive. Romantic Warrior says, let's not fall for the banana in the tailpipe trick. Yes, I'm not sure what you're referring to exactly, but sure. Pop Reality says, progressives are in a civil war with corporatism. We should embrace it. # Bernie or Yellow Vest. Aaron M. says, Lieutenant Colonel just escorted out of White House, according to his lawyer. Trump, quote, I'm not happy with him. You think I'm supposed to be happy with him? I'm not. All right, I don't even know what the story's about. I got to look into that later. Gabriel Arkari says, keep up the good work. Regards from Sweden. Thank you, Gabriel. Damian Taylor says, does it seem like the audio in Bernie's appearances is usually of poor quality recently? This is, as somebody who was in school for video and audio production, yes. And it's not recently. It's like all the time. They're live events. I don't know what the hell is going on with the audio, but the mics often peak way too early. So they got to do something with that. I don't know if it's how they're how the soundboard is processing it, or how they're processing it afterwards, or if it's the mics themselves. I don't know what the exact problem is, but they peak before someone's even yelling. Like, you'll have Bernie talking at like a regular volume, and you will hear distortion in the voice, and it's definitely annoying, definitely a problem. At some point, I would like them to fix it, but it's one of those things where, in the midst of a race, the last thing they're thinking about is that their audio peaks too early. Like it's not really on their minds, but it definitely annoys me as somebody who notices it. Gina Galagos says, is it possible to get the UN to observe the Dem primary? How do we make this happen? That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to it. But yeah, there has to be international oversight over the democratic process in the U.S. because it doesn't appear to be all that democratic, at least not so far. Richard Mays says, just got a notice from Apple News saying Mayo Pete is surging in New Hampshire with a 4-point gain while Sanders stalls with a 1-point loss since Monday. Sanders leads 31-21. So there's different, I'm going to get to some of the polls in a bit. There's different polling. So in one poll, Pete is behind Bernie by 1 point. In another poll, a Monmouth, I think it's Monmouth University poll, or it's Emerson, I think. The Emerson poll has Bernie up by 10 points. I don't know. In both cases, though, Buttigieg is in second place. 2 more here before I get to tweets of the week. Mockable says, Trump was asked about payback for impeachment. He said, you'll see. Scary. Well, he's not going to say no, knowing Trump. So it may just be all talk, but whatever. The reality is Democrats had to do something. Like, there are many voters who are very focused on Trump. Like, that's their focus. I know that may not be you. That's not me, definitely. But there are many Democratic voters who are very focused on Trump and wanted the Democrats to do something about him. The call to Ukraine is like the least of the problems. So they should have put a lot more into impeachment. But basically, they had to fight and do something. They had to hold the president to some kind of standard. Otherwise, you have the strong potential of losing many of those voters, many of those people, just suppressing energy in the Democratic Party because you're showing no fight towards Donald Trump. I mean, the Democratic Party, the leadership is horrible, just horrible. I mean, and impeachment on this interaction with Ukraine is like at the very is the least they could do. They should have done a lot more when it comes to fighting him, but it's the least they could do. And I think it can definitely come back to bite Republicans in the butt come the fall. I know moderate Republicans sounds crazy because not many of them exist, but depending on the state, some of them do exist. And some of those people will switch over to Democrats now that they're seeing Trump be this complete corrupt figure. Though I gotta say, there can't be many of those people. Like, if you haven't switched over from Trump by now, something's wrong with you. So you're in a cult, and I can't help you. And the reality is, a lot of those so-called moderate Republicans are really just on television. They're millionaires that don't want their taxes raised. So I don't know. But I do think at the very least, Democratic Party should hold the president to some kind of standard, even though that call to Ukraine wouldn't be my main focus. Vipassam says, heard Bernie denies the pundit genocide in Kashmir from DNC in my area. Any truth to that? DNC is running a whisper campaign our area with pundits. I don't know anything. As far as I've seen, Bernie's the only one to even discuss Kashmir. So I have no idea his position on that exactly. But I haven't seen anyone else even discuss Kashmir at all. So I think it's like, just looking at his record and what Bernie has said in the past, I think it's obvious there is one, like, when it comes to foreign policy, forget about it. Everybody else is in one camp when it comes to foreign policy. The same camp the Democratic Party's been in for the past, 30 years. Bernie Sanders is on his own when it comes to foreign policy. He's the actual humanitarian. All right. 2 more stories, and then I'll get all the super chats. So let me get to my tweets of the week, which includes a video in one of them. So it's not really a tweet of the week. It's more of a video of the week. Actually, I got 2 videos coming up. All right. All right, so every week I collect a bunch of tweets that I don't know where to fit into. Let me start that over. Every week I collect tweets that I don't know where to fit into other stories, so I collect them and I share them. So these are the tweets of the week. Let me show you what I collected this week. So you got Li Feng here saying, here's how much Biden is reliant on big money. Biden's direct campaign, limited by campaign donor limits, just booked only $90,000 of ads in the New Hampshire media market. Biden's super PAC, unlimited donors funded by billionaires run by lobbyists, just booked almost $500,000 in New Hampshire ads today. So Biden started the campaign swearing off super PACs, acting like, oh yeah, I'm also going to do what Bernie's doing, not taking any corporate money, not taking any super PACs. I'm going to, run my campaign like I actually give a shit. And he doesn't. So he ended up taking it on a super PAC because Biden wasn't able to raise the money he wanted to raise without it. So this super PAC is doing all this work for him, running all these ads in New Hampshire, essentially keeping his campaign afloat. So good piece of information there from Li Feng. Let's get to so this guy, I gotta say, if I know how to say your name properly, Ibrahim, fantastic follow him. I mean, always posting important clips, newsworthy clips. This was a great moment this week on MSNBC where Anand Giridharadas completely destroys Jonathan Chait. So Jonathan Chait is the guy that's saying Bernie can't be the nominee because he will lose to Trump. Jonathan Chait is the guy that's been wrong about every major event in the past 20 years. So watch this interaction here.
Doing so well in this moment?
It's a very good question. 19 years ago, little known fact, I, as an intern, fact-checked some of Jonathan Chait's pieces of the New Republic. I'm not sure I can help him now with this argument because I don't think it is our job as journalists to predict, right? And I think one of the points that was made when Jonathan wrote his piece, which was thoughtful and a coherent argument, but I think inherently getting into this terrain of predicting. And John predicted the Iraq War would go well. John predicted that Trump would lose decisively to Hillary Clinton and suggested that the Democrats cheer his nomination by the Republican Party. I think we should be humble when we have those kinds of records. I don't predict for a living. I report. I'm a reporter.
Doing so well in this moment?
Right. It's a very good question.
I don't know. I'm sad they cut it at the end there while Jonathan Chait was reacting to him being owned. Look at that. Look at this fucking loser.
His nomination by the Republican Party. I think we should be humble when we have those kinds of...
Yeah. If you are wrong about every major event over the past 20 years, maybe stop making predictions. Maybe. Maybe stop making a fool out of yourself. So Anand Giridharadas with a great moment here, just completely annihilating Jonathan Chait. And he's going to be wrong again. So just you wait. This tweet here. So this was sent out by Johnny Boy CA, or maybe Johnny Boysa. I don't know. Says must watch. So this is Don Lemon. To be honest with you, I kind of forget this interaction, but I do remember enjoying it. So let's watch it.
For last, because you and I had a conversation. I thought, and this was me, that just sort of observing that people had sort of written off Bernie Sanders after the heart attack, saying, and here he is. It could win. You can say he did win because I agree with Astead. It's pretty close. I think they both won. Yeah. But do you think they're going to... They both overperformed or outperformed expectations, I think. So I'm wondering, do you think that they're going to miss out on the bounty?
So I never thought he was counted out, and
not at all.
And I thought he was going to win Iowa. So I think there were a lot of people who thought that. So it's true that because Mayor Pete kind of came out of nowhere in this cycle, that it is a bigger deal that he won there. But somehow Bernie Sanders does always seem to get robbed of everything. So I just want to say, we need to be careful about acting like it's not a big deal that he did as well as he did in Iowa, 100%. And that he may actually end up winning and very well is going to win New Hampshire. And,
that was the point of my question.
Yeah.
Because people had counted him out, and I think it's just a real comeback.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would have counted him out, honestly. Yeah. He's got such a base of support. He had a great organization in Iowa. And so, I think it was a mistake for anybody to do that.
Yeah. And ground game is everything in Iowa.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I understand that strategically that what Mayor Pete did was probably the right thing to do, but I found it slightly sleazy. I mean, because he didn't win, and he didn't know that he won, and he went out and said something. In the end, he actually may not win.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't actually think that I don't know. It doesn't endear.
It bothers you. You think it bothered you, the speech?
Yeah, because you don't know that. I mean, and in the end, it might not even be true.
Let's move forward tonight and talk about.
So that was awesome. Does her name come up? Because I don't know who this is. Oh, Kirsten Powers. I think I've seen her on Twitter. So that's who that is. Kirsten Powers. Yeah, that was great. I like her comments saying, I don't know why you would count him out. I don't think anyone should count him out. So there you go. Kirsten Powers rejecting the CNN narrative that they've had over the past, 4 months. All right. Now, the last tweet of the week. This was posted by One Man Lefty Army. What's going on here, Joy-Ann Reid? So back in 2016, Joy Reid tweets, this is after Hillary wins Iowa, and Hillary is neither a caucus thief nor an accidental victor. Winning Iowa, even narrowly, was a legit boost to her campaign. Now, today, am I wrong to think that 6,000 votes is not exactly a revolutionary margin? Either way, so not exactly a revolutionary margin either way. So neither of the top two finishers in Iowa got much out of it regardless of the outcome. And it wasn't Team Sanders, wasn't it Team Sanders that's insisted on keeping caucuses after 2016 because he did better in them? Absurd. So here you have Hillary winning she won that race by 0.2%. Huge victory. I mean, clearly a legit boost to her campaign. Here you have Sanders with 6,000 more votes, which is big in Iowa, by the way. 6,000 more votes, which is more than 0.2%. 6,000 votes over Buttigieg in Iowa. Not a big deal. I mean, who cares? I mean, this means nothing. Let's move on. I mean, the hypocrisy of these people knows no bounds. All right. And those are the tweets of the week. Let's get to polling now. From what I saw, there were less polls this week than what I normally collect, or it may just be because I was too engaged in. Actually, now that I'm seeing the list, maybe there's a lot, but I don't think as much polling came out this week as before. Actually, this one's old, so I'm not even going to use that. Okay. Just prepping this, and then I'll do this story, then I'll do all the super chats at once. How about that? Okay. So I collected some polls over the course of this week. This is mostly polling that happened after the Iowa caucuses on Monday, and now it's Friday. So you're going to see basically what the race looks like going into New Hampshire next week. So first here, this is a national Reuters poll, or Reuters Ipsos poll. This is on issues. So who is the best candidate on healthcare? Bernie Sanders leads with 30 to Biden's 17, Warren's 13, Bloomberg 11, Buttigieg 4. Environment, Sanders 23, Biden 14, Bloomberg 12, Steyer 9. Then we go down to economy and jobs. Sanders leading again, 21 to Bloomberg 20. This, I mean, the fact that Bloomberg's in second here and this close behind Sanders shows you the power of a billionaire. This is all through his own ads. So in some ways, you can say maybe it's good that Bloomberg will eventually appear. It appears he'll be on a future debate stage because he'll actually be challenged on his horrible record. But still, Sanders leads here 21 to Bloomberg at 20, Biden at 16, Warren 12. And strong progressive, Sanders 29, Warren 14, Biden 12, Bloomberg 12. On immigration, this is hilarious. Biden is leading Sanders here, 22% to Sanders at 18. Warren 11, Bloomberg 8. National security, again, hilarious. Biden 32, Sanders 15. So, actually, there's more. Can unify the Democratic Party. Biden 26, again, absurd. Sanders 16, Warren 11. Most likely to beat Trump in the general election. Again, mostly based off a mainstream media narrative. Biden 30, Sanders 18, Bloomberg 13. And there's more. It's the last one. New and different voice. Sanders and Buttigieg tied at 17%. All right. So most of these issues Sanders is leading in. But then, I mean, this one, how many times do I have to try and inform the misinformed about Biden's electability? Like at this point, I'm not even sure if I'm all that worried about Biden. He's polling in like 4th place right now in New Hampshire. Or we're going to see where he's polling at when I get to the numbers. But Sanders is the most electable because he's able to bring out communities that don't normally vote. That's the bottom line. The youth, marginalized communities, as you saw in Iowa. I covered that during the live stream. Working class voters that don't normally vote, independents, progressive independents. So the people that voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016 will come out regardless of the candidate in 2020. But Sanders reaches out to voters who don't normally vote. That's what takes you as a nominee over the top of Donald Trump in 2020. Let's get to the next poll. This is so this is actually a two-parter because initially 538's forecast for early states and Super Tuesday has Sanders the best chance of winning every state. So New Hampshire, Nevada, California, Texas, North Carolina, Virginia, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Colorado, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Utah, Maine, Vermont, except for South Carolina and Alabama, which goes to Joe Biden. But that then changed. As Samuel D. Finkelstein says here, as of this morning, 538 says Bernie will sweep all 50 states. I'm not kidding, all of them. Let's make it happen. So you see him winning here in Texas, South Carolina, California, Massachusetts. So that's their projection. Again, none of this is set in stone. Everything can completely change. But what matters here is to stay focused on the race and understand that your support, your volunteer time, your donations, door knocking, phone banking, all that works. Your discussions with family and friends, all that works. So keep doing it, and hopefully lead to a victory. And 538 here overall gives odds of winning the Dem nomination 49% to Bernie Sanders, and then no one's in second place at 23%. Then Biden at 17, Warren at 8, Buttigieg at 3%. All right, the next one here. National Morning Consult poll. So this is national poll, yeah. So Biden down 5, now in second place. Bernie overtaking Biden for first place at 25%, jumping up 3 points. Bloomberg's in third at 15%. He's actually gone down 1. It's amazing Bloomberg is even in the top 3. Buttigieg is a +5 in this national poll at 12%. Warren's down 2. It really seems like Warren's campaign is about to just be done. I hope she doesn't stay in past the early states. Let's get to, this is most likely to lure primary voters in wake of Iowa results. So can't zoom in much closer, but Bernie Sanders here is the there we go. Bernie Sanders is leading in terms of encouraging people or getting people most involved out to vote. So Democratic primary voters were asked whether the results of the Iowa caucuses made them more or less likely to vote for the following. So Bernie leads in more likely. So much more likely, somewhat more likely, and then don't know is the middle there. So you see here, Sanders, his supporters are more likely to support him. Biden supporters just behind Bernie in second place. Bloomberg somehow, again, buying his way into this race, now in a top 3 spot for people that are more likely to vote for him as a candidate. And then it just goes down from there. So, again, we don't know. All of this is just data pieces that we don't know if will actually translate into anything real, but it's just information to be aware of. Monmouth poll for New Hampshire. Bernie Sanders is up 6 points since January. He's in first place at 24%. Buttigieg is no change at 20%. Joe Biden's down 2 points at 17%. Elizabeth Warren's down 2 points at 13%. Amy Klobuchar up 3 points at 9%. And this was over the 3rd to the 5th. So fairly recent polling here. And this Emerson poll / 7 News post-Iowa poll for New Hampshire. Sanders leading by 9 points. 32% in first place. Buttigieg 23% in second. Warren 13%. Biden 11%. So it really drops off after Buttigieg for New Hampshire. All right. So that kind of gives you an idea of maybe what to expect in New Hampshire. Again, we don't know how the media, or at least I should say CNN, during the town hall saying Buttigieg won the Iowa caucuses when their own reporting contradicted that. So it's unclear how this whole story will play out, how the whole Iowa debacle will play out with voters in New Hampshire. But it appears Sanders is still in the lead. That said, keep it up. Keep up the push. Keep up the door knocking, the phone banking, the small donations, like whatever you can. Talk to friends and family. Stay involved in the process. And if you're in New Hampshire, my God, make sure you go out and vote and bring people with you. That's how you will deliver not even just Sanders, but the people a victory come the fall. All right. Now it's time for every super chat that I missed. I'm not sure where I stopped either, so it's going to be fun to find that. Okay. I think I'm at Jaguar Rose. I feel like Trump would use the video of immigrants voting for Bernie against him in the general. He'll say Bernie cheated and let illegals vote. No, that's not going to. Here's the reality. Trump can do that. That's only going to help. Like, that's only going to invigorate his base. That's only going to come out for him. Like, that's coming out for him regardless. So Trump can play those games, but there are a lot more people that will come out and vote for Bernie Sanders if Trump highlights that, then will hurt him. So, like, a piece of propaganda like that, again, will only make his supporters be like, yeah, Trump, the same people that were going to come out and vote for Trump regardless. You're not reaching any new voters by being racist. So, sure, Trump can try that, but Sanders is able to bring out a lot more new voters into the process. Abby Torres Pina says, would it be more beneficial for Bernie to give a detailed breakdown of how Medicare for All would be paid for through taxes versus saying it will save the average family $12,000? No. Look at what happened to Elizabeth Warren. She gave a detailed breakdown and then put it into 2 different bills, and she lost a ton of support. It is so dishonest for the media to keep talking about the cost of Medicare for All when it is cheaper than the current system. So you don't play their game. You don't play on their turf. You set the rules. The actual facts are that when you take out a profit-making middleman, you save money on healthcare. How this is not obvious to everyone, like this is how Bernie should be communicating it. How this is not obvious, like why the media keeps lying about this is because they keep buying advertisements on this station. Like, you don't buy into their BS narrative. So no, don't give a detailed breakdown. It's you save a shit ton of money under a single payer system because you take out the profit-making middleman. It's that simple. Brian Otree says, Thankfully, in California, people registered as no party preference can still vote in the Dem primary. I left the party in 2016. Can't see myself going back. Even still, like the kinds of games that the Democratic Party will play, which is you don't know, which is why I say register as a Democrat regardless of any of the rules they're telling you, because you don't know how they're going to play a game with you. Like it just, I was already seeing some BS about California and like how there's multiple pages when it comes to the electronic ballots or the machines they're using. And I think like Bernie's on the second page. Like it was all done randomly, but it ends up being where I think Bernie's on the second page, Biden's on like the third page, Warren's on the first page. Like who knows how that may affect the vote, and it could definitely affect the vote. If you're able to vote for somebody while just staying on the first page and not being forced to actually look through all the candidates, that could definitely have a negative impact on whatever candidates are on the second, third, fourth pages. Alma says, help David out and hit the like button. Yes. Thank you, Alma, for pointing that out. Yes, hit the like button below. Thank you. Jan Johansson says, greetings from evil socialist Sweden. Thank you for the super chat. Unicorn Milk says, I don't think you realize how much of an impact you make on American history. As a vet, I would like to thank you for your service. You serious? Thank you. I don't think I make much of an impact on American history. I mean, I guess, well, if Bernie wins, then maybe I did. Maybe I brought out just a few thousand people, just enough to take him over the top. Who knows? No, but thank you, I guess. I don't view myself as you view me, but that's very kind. Thank you. Real life Jolie says, excellent pronunciation. Thank you. AI Cram says, please read /I wrote / so no need to tell me to read Bill of Rights for voting equality. Marcia. I don't know what you're talking about. Gabriel says, moderate Republicans equal Democrats. I would put it the opposite way. Moderate Democrats equal moderate Democrats equal Republicans. But yeah, I mean, this is why the party could be like 4 different parties. Like there was that quote, that AOC or the AOC quote where she said how if we were in any other country, Joe Biden and me wouldn't be in the same party. It's 100% true. Joe Biden, like in Canada, Joe Biden he could be considered a conservative because Joe Biden doesn't even support single-payer healthcare, even though our conservative party does. So you could say Joe Biden is actually further right, at least on healthcare, than our conservative party in Canada. Meanwhile, you could argue AOC is further left than the NDP and the Greens. Then again, I mean, it depends on the MP. So it depends on who you're talking about. Because, you know, someone like Nikki Ashton is very pro-Bernie, very pro-AOC, and she's an NDP MP. But in terms of the leadership of the parties, yeah, Biden and AOC would be in completely different parties here. Joe Biden says, now listen here, Canada, you, me, GoldenEye 64. Now, I used to play GoldenEye 64 a lot back in the day. Have not played that for, I don't know, probably 30 years. Who knows? I guess 20 years. 20 years. Mateus N says, which wines from Ontario are good to drink? Don't ask me about wine. I don't know anything about wine. I have no clue. 80 Siva D says, thanks for all your hard work. Love this channel. Thank you. Gabriel says they both outperformed. Complete BS. Mr. Sir says, if aliens saw our elections, what would they think? I mean, you'd have to assume that the aliens have some concept of democracy and voting. But I can tell you what I think as someone who I guess you can consider to be an alien, as I'm not part of your country. I think it's crazy. That's what I think. I think your elections are completely insane. How they're handled, everything. I mean, even look, not to say Canada's perfect. We have our own issues. Like we're also first past the post as Americans are. So popular vote, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win. And you can form a majority government with just 40% of the vote based on first past the post, how it works. So, yeah, we have definite issues. But when it comes to just counting the votes, no issues there. The votes are counted. So it is just crazy what your system is. It is just crazy. PJ Coin says, how can you trust any state election result? I don't know. But you have to vote, right? Like that's the thing. You have to be engaged. Like there's no point thinking that way because all it leads to is basically making people feel like they're helpless and they can't do anything. So don't think that way. You can definitely overwhelm the result, and even if there are discrepancies, still potentially win because you overwhelmingly voted for one candidate. But unless you're actually in the room counting the votes yourselves, you never know 100% anything. Kevin McAlpine says, I'm so glad Georgia is open. Also AVR with license. I don't know what this means. Oh, you mean open primary? I friggin' hope so. Yeah, open. My God, to have closed primaries is so undemocratic and just, it's not smart for the party. Like, this is what I say about Hillary Clinton. She was able to secure the nomination in 2016, obviously partly because of the rigging, but also because of the system in place. I mean, that's really where most of the rigging was taking place, was just the system that exists of closing out voters if you aren't a registered Democrat. How do you expect to have a strong candidate in the general election if you don't even allow independents to vote for your Democratic nominee during the primary? Like, it's a stupid process. So if you actually have open primaries where independents, anyone can come vote, then you actually have a better shot at having a candidate that can win in the fall, because you're not just appealing to Democratic people that are, or people that are registered to one party. You're appealing to everybody during the primary process. But again, your elections are dumb. What can I say? The Absolute Wanderer says, are you aware of the slow growth of your channel? You mean right now or in general? Yes, I'm aware. It grew quickly at one point, and then so YouTube has done this thing where it is, if you just go on YouTube, you aren't logged in, and you search up news stories, like you search up, I don't know, Bernie Sanders, Iowa, I'm not going to pop up. You're going to get pages and pages of like CNN, MSNBC, the official Bernie Sanders page. You won't get to independent media for a while. So the YouTube algorithm changed to really uplift what they called authoritative news sources, so corporate outlets. So in that process, they suppressed a ton of independent media by lifting up corporate media. So that has affected the growth of all progressive channels since that change happened. At the same time, I'm very happy with my audience, where I'm at. Like, obviously, I want to appeal, or I want to be able to speak to more people and inform more people. Like, that's why it angers me that you can't find my videos when you search them on YouTube, unless you put my name in. But I'm not complaining. I mean, I used to have no followers, so you know what I mean? Like, it would feel very, I don't know. It wouldn't make sense for me to complain about the status of my channel when I'm very happy with the growth that I've seen. Mockable says, in New York, you must be Dem to vote in Dem primary. Sucks. Yeah. New York State is closed off. Is a closed primary state. All right. Let me finish up the last couple super chats here and then get out of here. The Absolute Wanderer says, but I love your work and I still share your videos on Facebook. Keep it up. You, Kyle, Jimmy really got me involved in politics. Keep doing you. Thank you so much for the kind words. And Pizza Pasta Cat says, hashtag Pete's Billionaires is trending on Twitter. Love it. That's fantastic. All right. Thank you all for coming. Again, go to the Facebook page. I want to hit 10,000 followers on Facebook. I discussed that at the beginning of the stream, but basically I want to grow the Facebook page a little more since it reaches a different generation, you could say. So facebook.com/TRN show. So like my Twitter handle, my Rational National Twitter handle, TRN show. Go there, follow, sub to the Facebook channel, and that will help me quite a bit. Did I just hear one more super chat? You're coming in late. Remember, there's a minute delay here, so I'm not seeing some of these. I may not get your super chat if I cut off before the delay hits. AI Cram says, are you not understanding just to get more money? Wait, what? Are you not understanding just to get more money? Please read when you have time, the Bill of Rights for voting equality. Just say yes and try to do it later. You will be glad you did. Thanks. I don't know what you're talking about, dude. David Nguyen says, big super chat, thank you. If after New Hampshire it comes down to Bernie versus Pete, we shouldn't underestimate Pete. They'll definitely use their age. They'll use their age difference more. We need to push on how Bernie's always been on the right side of history, whereas Pete has not. Yeah. I mean, they can use the age difference, but that's not fooling any younger voter. Like, it's so weird that like, Pete's trying to use his age as a way to like be like, I should be the nominee because I'm younger. Yet he has no support from the youth. So, no. We see right through him because we can actually look into his history, what he supports, who's supporting him, the money he's raising, who he's raising money from. So, sure, they can try to use the age difference as an issue, but it's really not going to impact many voters. All right. It sounds like the delay hit because I can hear new super chats coming in. Okay, let me just get these last ones, then I'm out. Amy the Third, I think, says, can you name the sources that mention the 2020 candidates will be on separate pages on the ballot? I believe you, but I want to look into it more. I heard that from Cenk. So Cenk Uygur, who's actually on the ballot because he's running in, I think it's California's 25th district, but he's running as a congressional candidate. So I think they did a report on it, but if you look up California, I don't know, electronic voting pages, just put those words into Google. Maybe something will come up. Again, I'm at the end of the stream here, so I can't do too much now, but you'll find it. And Roman says the time is now. Yes, good super chat to end on. The time is now, indeed. Make sure you seize it. All right, I'll be back next week. Let's hope the result of New Hampshire is a good one. And if I do a live stream of the debate, which I can't guarantee I will, but if I do, it'll be on Twitch. And the Twitch link is below the video in the description box. So just click on that. You'll see my Twitch channel. And it's because I can't stream cable news on YouTube without there being copyright issues. So if I do cover it, it'll be on Twitch. Possibly look out for that, but possibly not. All right. Thank you, and see you next week.